So, what is unbelievable about 21st century cures, bipartisan, 90 plus percent on both sides of the aisle, wildly in favorable. President Obama signed it in the kind of lame duck session at the end of 2016. It said unequivocally healthcare information shall be made available through standardized APIs. And the fancy language that is the hallmark of this law is that the data sharing shall occur without special effort. Think about every HL7 interface you had to launch for a specific project to connect to the HIE, to connect to a third-party app, to connect to a health plan. You would not characterize that as without special effort. So in order to get to without special effort, we need to have plug and play apps. And the Cures Act basically says the entire healthcare record without special effort to patients, to doctors, to pharma, to plans, to whatever. Now, this is the key. That law, by the way, an important point given some of the political debate over the regulations, the congressional leadership did not say, pending somebody else's privacy review, the consumer can or cannot actually exercise their rights. They said they have these rights, the right to the consumer, and then effectively by contract to all the other stakeholders. So Congress made it very clear. That gave the Office of the National Coordinator and the CMS Administrator all the foundation they needed to state the following. We are going to tackle technical and non-technical. It's funny, in international trade bill, they call these non-tariff trade barriers, that on paper, you're not actually technically doing something wrong or right, but you're doing something indirectly that's causing harm. So the analogy would be in cloud computing, you've got to have data centers on soil. Well, if you got a US-based cloud company, they're not going to be putting data centers in every country around the world. That would be a non-tariff trade barrier. So information blocking became the term around the non-tariff trade barriers that were inhibiting progress. But the good news is we now have a very clear recipe from the Cures Act. Our pace for achieving the vision of the law of all data to all stakeholders without special effort is constrained to the pace of standards consensus. If 6 CIOs in a room said, this is how we're going to communicate this person's homelessness status, we could reach consensus and scale it to every community in the country because the Cures Act gives us that power. So a lot of my time and effort, Bill, has been to try to put my energy where we can achieve consensus with neighbors and friends that want to make progress. And even if the neighbors and friends make progress at a slightly faster pace than the rest of the industry, because of the law, we have the authority to take that idea and to make it accessible. And there's no single provision more obviously central to this than how we got the bulk fire requirement as part of the ONC rules.
Yeah. So, I mean, the foundation for 21st century cures, patients at the center, so I can request my information. And no special effort, which is what you said. But it's interesting because some of the pushback came from EHR providers, some of the pushback came from health systems. And so there needs to be protections in there, almost not protection. Well, maybe it is protections to make sure that they don't interfere, right? So there's penalties for information blocking, but there's also this idea that they can't. And that's this whole idea, and you've talked about this as net neutrality.